For thousands of years, indigenous peoples in North America had been using fire to shape and protect the landscape.
Fire is not inherently bad. This landscape evolved with fire. The species on this landscape are fire-dependent species. You can't take fire out of this landscape.
Fire clears out brush to make way for fire-resistant edible plants, like acorn-producing oak trees, underground bulbs and onions, and berry bushes that can sprout back after a fire. And it creates a diverse patchwork of forest and grasslands. A setup ideal for hunting wild game and gathering food from the forest. But starting in the 1800s, white settlers to the region saw these trees as a commercial resource and felt new towns had to be protected. Fire suppression became a U.S. government policy for over a century, and it became a crime to conduct intentional burns in this part of the country.
There really wasn't a lot of burning going on when I was growing up because it had been criminalized, particularly for Indian people.
You could get shot if you were Native for starting a fire. You could go to jail.
But now the frequency and severity of fires in the West is increasing, decade by decade. Rising temperatures and cycles of drought play a part. But an aggravating factor is how the forests themselves have been managed.
You've removed fire from the system for so long, there's all that much fuel that builds up. And now, with an additional stressor added, like climate change, it really causes problems.
Without regular, low-intensity fires to thin them out, Western forests are now twice as dense as they were 200 years ago. And without the patchwork of already burnt land to stop their progression, they can spread across 1,000 square miles, destroying towns in their path. Fortunately, there's a solution to this problem. Now, the Karuk and other indigenous peoples are securing burn permits and bringing back their ancient practice. Literally, fighting fire with fire.
Just to start, this is a ceremonial ground, so it's important to take it really slow.
Today, tribal members are planning a series of fires they'll be setting downriver from Happy Camp, near the community of Orleans.
So we're gonna create a little bit of a black line right in here.
The fire is to protect the town and get that grassy area burned off.
Starting and controlling fires in this landscape, close to an inhabited area, takes skill.
Just specialized expertise to know when the wind's gonna be right.
Winds 0 to 2, gusts to 6.
When the humidity's gonna be right, when we should burn for something and when we shouldn't.
They wait until dusk, when it is cooler, less windy, and more humid to start burning. First, they carefully torch and then extinguish a patch of grass to create what's called a black line, a barrier to keep the fire from burning out of control.
That area won't burn. So you have a safety zone in between the places that you're not wanting to burn.
Then, they light fires across the field, careful to keep water hoses nearby to handle any flames that jump beyond the black line or threaten trees.
We're setting the landscape on a trajectory to accept fire in a good way. And we're gonna be way more set up for when we get to do larger scale fires.
The 2-day burn goes off without a hitch.
What we're doing and what we're advocating for isn't an experiment at all. We know it works. It's worked for 10,000 years in this place, and it can work again.
We're taking that next step in bringing fire back to the people. This idea of cultural burning. It actually made its way into the Secretary's executive order this past week.
Now, federal and state governments in the West see the wisdom of this approach